to Sagas Sass Season 3. I'm Tara, along with fellow hosts Nick, Jonathan, and Nami.
This episode will cover Part 3 of Senlin Ascends, the first installment in Josiah Bancroft's Books of Babel series.
If you're watching live, join us in the chat, or after the fact, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Sagas Sass to continue the conversation.
And just a reminder, the views expressed in this show are those of the hosts as individuals and do not necessarily represent the show as a whole. Also, you should know that I couldn't find the tab for our script for a second, and I started saying that completely by memory. I'm kind of
That's
amazing.
Impressive.
Thank you. I memorize useless things. All right, it is time to dive back into Senlin Ascends. We left Thomas Senlin escaping from the baths on an airship, one that happens to be filled with women who are on their way out to be, well, sold in New Babel. Upon his arrival there, Senlin immediately bungles things by signing his name into the New Babel register, and not a new false one, which would have been kind of smart. And because of his idiocy, he is immediately chased down by an Amazon-like woman. And to make matters worse, she doesn't even catch him until after he stumbles into a drug den and accidentally gets high on a opium-like drug called crumb. Sorry, guys. It's my dad. Senlin awakes in the presence of the Amazon, who is named Irene, and none other than Finn Goal, who he met in the basement. He was that dude who had all his stuff. Thankfully for Senlin, though, it doesn't seem to be as dire of a situation as we think. Finn actually offers to hire him to manage his books, and Senlin definitely needs the money, so he reluctantly strikes a deal. Only for Senlin to find out that Adam, the young man who robbed him back in the basement, also works for Finn, and that's how Finn got his bag.
What?
Senlin is forgiving. Definitely stupidly so. The script says possibly, but I had to amend. And the two actually become friends, Senlin and Adam, not Senlin and Finn. Time passes. It's been 5 months, something like that. Senlin is doing a great job working for Finn. And in exchange for fighting lessons from Irene, he starts teaching her how to read as well.
Eventually, Adam finally tells Senlin his own story. That being that he came to the tower with his sister, Velita, after their father died. He signed what he thought was a work contract, but it turned out that he was duped and owed his employer money instead. This was back in the parlor. He loses Velita to a man named Rodion, who runs a brothel in New Babel, and while Velita has so far only had to perform as an acrobat in Rodion's show, that man is constantly holding it over Adam's head that he can sell Velita's virginity anytime he wants. So Adam, who in the course of his ascent through the tower has been branded and lost an eye, has been working hard to free his sister. But it's losing hope because, well, isn't it obvious that the tower works against people like him and Velita and Senlin and so on and everyone? Of course, Senlin is still itching to go after Maria, so he decides he's going to steal a ship and recruit some of Fingal's men to sail it. Is his plan good? Probably not. And it doesn't help that in the midst of everything, the commissioner's executioner, the Red Hand, shows up for the painting that Senlin stole, which we all know Senlin doesn't have. What he does have is Ogier's key gun, which he uses to shoot the Red Hand, but the executioner escapes. The upside is that this leads Senlin to discover that Ogier actually stowed his prize painting behind the one of Maria, so he did have it all along! And he includes with it a note saying to keep it safe because it is the key to the tower and to happiness, and I believe also to danger.
Not that happiness is going to find Senlin or vice versa anytime soon, because to top it all off, Fingal finds out that Senlin is teaching Irene to read and does not like. Between this, the encounter with the Red Hand, and Rodion's escalating threats about Velita, it's obviously past time to get the F out of New Babel. Except that when Senlin finally decides which ship to steal, Edith, of all people, shows up to throw a wrench in his plans. Edith, who is now first mate on a pirate airship and boasts a super cool mechanical brass arm. Senlin figures that now the better option is to steal the pirate airship, the Stone Cloud, because why not? Edith can even be part of his crew, right? For some reason, somewhat misplaced loyalty perhaps, Edith agrees to help him. But this is Senlin, and they are in the tower, so obviously things can't just happen as planned. Instead, Senlin is summoned to Finn's house, a little spot of paradise in New Babel where he lives, with his wife and children. Who could have seen that coming?
Now, before leaving his room, Senlin has insisted on putting on his coat, in which the key gun and the paintings are concealed. He considers shooting Finn, but decides against it because, kids and all don't want to see them getting their father killed. Instead, he makes his way to the port, where chaos quickly ensues when Rodion shoots the pirate ship captain. Senlin finds out that Adam was the one who betrayed him to the commissioner. Senlin shoots Rodion. The commissioner arrives. A crate of crumb is broken open. Everyone gets really high as fuck, and Iron is critically injured. And yet somehow Senlin, Edith, Adam, and Valletta escape. They sail away on the stone cloud, presumably to help Senlin rescue Mara, which at this point, Senlin is more worried than ever about the state he will find his wife in.
All right. So there was a lot of escalation in the last part of this book. I certainly didn't expect, when I first read it, obviously I did on reread, but I didn't expect when I first read it that Senlin would go essentially into business with Finn Gull. So I don't know. What do you guys think? Thoughts on how this began and how it progressed, I guess.
Well, it made sense.
He didn't have a choice.
Yeah, he needed money.
Right.
I was trying to figure out when he was finally going to stop and get himself some goddamn money, and I'm happy that he did. Because low-key, I was imagining that, the next book was going to be Senlin in the Walls as a hob because he forgot he had to pay for shit. And I
and when I say I was surprised that they went into business together, obviously Senlin didn't have a choice. What I mean is I was shocked that Finn would want him.
Yeah, and he clearly really likes him, because it's not the only then later when Finn finds out that he didn't steal money from Finn. He gave his employees a raise without telling Finn about it, and Finn was pissed about it because even though overall Senlin has made him money, Finn's like, I need every dollar because I'm gonna buy my way out of all of this. But even after that, he's like, well, if you do these things, it'll be fine. Whereas the last person, apparently Aren strangled and threw over the tower.
Yeah, no, it's kind of interesting actually, because as much as Fingal is very much presented as this cutthroat and savage dude, as everybody in the tower obviously has to be to survive. He does seem to have a soft spot for Senlin, because that whole carriage ride makes you think that obviously Senlin has main character armor and stuff, but the fact that the way he gets out of it is because Finn was going to let him get away with it if he made it right and take from his salary instead of having Iron kill him. And what I would have thought would have happened if Finn didn't like him, which is what I assumed, was that was going to be the moment where Iron was officially going to switch her loyalties and join him. That's what I thought was going to happen there. I never expected Finn would be you're still the best man for this job. You're still the only person I can trust with this, which kind of is funny because I think this is the first time that Senlin has straight up actually betrayed someone in the book so far. And he did. And I'm like, good for you, bud. Way to go.
Well, first of all, I would never have described what he did as betraying him, I think.
No. At the very end.
At the end, yeah.
The ship, all of that. Not the finances. You got to pay your goddamn workers or they're going to goddamn riot.
Well, I'm not in the tower, maybe. I don't know that they have much of a choice in matters when it comes to how much they make or whatever.
That's Finn Gull's theory on it. So
yeah.
Who would be played by Peter Dinklage in the movie.
Yeah, seriously. Reading these books is they could easily make this into a show. Because it would involve some really crazy indoor sets, but the tower itself could be very well CGI'd and everything. Yeah, I've thought about this a lot since I started reading these books 6-7 years ago. So when he gets to New Babel, he starts working for Finn. He also, witnesses firsthand like actual human trafficking, like beyond the wife mongering. Like we said in the summary, he arrives into New Babel on a ship full of women who are like obviously there to go work in the brothels, possibly some by choice, but mostly probably not, just considering what we know of the tower. Yeah, this part, there's a lot of like capitalism, stuff going on, more so than what we see in the baths where everybody's just kind of relaxing, minus like the little shopkeepers and stuff, and the parlor, which is, just a giant play of sorts. But I don't know. So New Babel, though, does seem to be a really miserable place, which...
In a way, though, I think the whole tower has just been a tower of capitalism so far. It's just that this is the first floor that acknowledges it, like very much out in the open.
It's the first, like clearly commerce-driven floor.
Exactly, because all the other floors are tourism-driven, but it's still, it's still capitalism. Like it's still
right.
Like the baths and the parlor, especially, are very tourism-driven, but it's still very much like people are here to spend money and keep things going. Which brings me to the goddamn fires. They finally talked about it. You were hinting at it, Tara, and I was like, what's up with the fires? There's something important about the fires.
Well, we only know his theory, and it's a good one, but we don't actually know what happens.
Even his theory is kind of, it's still not, totally formed, right? And he's telling Iron about it, and this is kind of late in part 3, honestly, when he tells Iron about it, but it's basically like, the tourists are asked to do these things that are powering something bigger. People ride the bikes for the beer me go round, so he says like they're probably pulling up water from underground, which that's it's like, okay, that works. Then on the parlor level, people are stoking the fires. That's producing heat energy. That's also going somewhere, being used for something. The baths are used to dispel the steam, from the combination probably of the basement water and the parlor fires. And then of course in New Babel, it's these like lightning nests where they're generating electricity. But yeah, it's none of his, it's like his theories. It's like, yes, this is all connected. This is all definitely something to do with powering things in the tower, but it's not like fully formed. No part of it is fully formed.
It's not fully formed. And quite honestly, when I read it, to me, it made it was cool, but it didn't really make logical sense because of the scale. I mean,
I think the scale makes perfect sense, though, because if you think about it, he basically said that the Birmies were everywhere on the basement floor.
The what?
Like, the beer me go rounds, there's more than one of them. There's a whole bunch of them.
I know there are a bunch of them, but we have to be so many. I mean,
but I think that's the whole point, though. Like the tower is obviously like immense. Like it's not.
No, I know. That's what I'm saying. The tower, the beer me go rounds or whatever they were. If they're pumping water to the tower, I could see if they were pumping water just to the baths potentially. But
that's what he.
The tower is so much larger than that. I can't.
Oh yeah. That's
what he was saying. The purpose of the beer bees wasn't to pump bad water to the top. The purpose was to pump water to the baths that is heated, and that heat is coming from the parlor because that creates a steam engine in the baths, and the steam engine in the baths is then being harnessed to create electricity in New Babel. The water is going to the top.
Yeah. So it's like one piece at a time, all adding up,
And the top is the electricity that's generated at New Babel that they then use a little bit of it in New Babel, but they're making so much that he's like, it doesn't make sense that this is the we're making. Puppy, no. But so what he's saying, though, is that since so little of that electricity is being used, the whole point of the bottom 4 floors is to generate that electricity for the rest of the tower. They're not pumping water to the top. They're not making the heat for the top. It's the electricity.
And we also don't know, where that ends, you know what I mean? Like, or where this ends. Like, there's electricity in New Babel, sure, but we don't know if that's the end all be all, or if there's, more to it. And Senlin doesn't either. That's kind of what he's saying. Yeah. It's like, this is all a smaller part of something way larger, which I think is like, I don't know, it's good world building. Like even the first time I read this, the beer me-go-rounds I didn't think anything of, but the stoking of the fires in the parlor and their obsession with it, dinged, in my head, like, what's up with this? There's something bigger here. The bads threw me off again. Because it's like, what could they possibly be doing? But that's also because I didn't, put the 2 and 2 together. Like, wow, Senlin, good for you. You finally thought.
Well, that's what he does.
You finally thunk to thunk.
He thunk to thunk. He books Boyd. He did his books.
Now, and this is like not on the same vein, but one of the things that I left out of the summary because I couldn't figure out a way to fit it in, but it is important to include, to talk about, I think, because that model of the tower that he finds, and Adam's like, oh, it's just an arrow model, whatever, I guess a model for airships to use to know where to land.
It's not a model, it's a map.
Well, yeah. I mean, they call it a model because it's a 3D thing, right? It's not like a flat piece of paper map. But Senlin notes that it's got a whole bunch of different people have written on it. Only some of the levels are labeled. He does find the Pelham City, which is where he thinks Maria is because she got wife napped or whatever you want to call it by Mr. Pell, Lord Pell, whatever the heck is. I can't remember what his title is, but his last name is Pell, P-E-L-L. So
it's mysterious at this point. W.H. Pell.
Yeah. So it's.
Oh, the Count. The Count.
Okay.
That was her name for him. She called him the Count.
Yeah. So I just find the idea of that they've got these, and I'm, assuming there's plenty, way more than one of these little models of the tower, but that even these models don't have even these models aren't complete. There's things missing. There's things not labeled. There's whatever, which I find very interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting on a couple levels too, because in this, it's adjacently related, but you realize how the tower is super old, and it's already it's kind of implied in everything that the tower is super old, but you get a confirmation that it's at least 100 years old here because of the guy pretending to be the painter. And the real painter was here 100 years ago. So this tower is clearly ancient. And if any evidence of the current power struggles is apparent, it's likely that what each floor is changes due to power struggles and who's in control. So the fact that certain floors are scratched out leads me to believe that power struggles on these floors meant that entire floors were kind of inhospitable or just in war at a time, and it was well, it's no longer this kingdom, who the fuck knows what's gonna happen. And stuff like that. And the fact that this map essentially was handed down through multiple people, and then they all put their edits on it. It's it's really cool. It's a 3D version of a regular old map. I want an arrow rod. I just want to carve a stick. I just want a cool stick. Maybe I'll go to the woods and get a stick tomorrow.
See how you're feeling.
Yeah.
Might be a stick day.
So I guess this part, part 3 is it's all over the place because Senlin's doing this thing, then he's doing this thing, and I think every little bit of it is just a little bit important. At least him teaching Iron how to read. Like you said, kind of originally assumed that would put her on his side like immediately, but then she still like beats him when Finn asks her to. Now granted, Senlin is like, yeah, I'm glad she did that. He's glad she didn't hesitate because he doesn't want to, he doesn't want to be, he doesn't want Finn knowing what's going on, doesn't want him questioning anything deeper. Not that Iron really knows anything at that point, but it's another one of those. I still can't believe Senlin's plan came together at all, even though it was sort of a mess in the end.
That's basically how his plans work, right?
Yeah.
Like they're kind of formed, but not the best, and then they kind of happen, and you're like, okay, it happened.
And I mean, and this, the Red Hand showing up and finding out that Adam has been
selling him out.
Yeah, it's like, Adam.
It was one of those moments where I was like, I thought Senlin was the most naive, but despite everything, Adam kind of took the cake at that point, because I was like, you really thought that the evil commissioner was going to be the one? Like, my dude. Although that was a good moment too after, because Senlin was like, respect my authority.
Call me captain, bitch.
Yeah. He's like, stay aye, bud.
I'm the captain now.
I'm still surprised that Senlin is keeping Adam with him at this point. Although
I'm not at all. That's
not at all surprised.
That's his character.
I mean,
surprised. I would have been incredibly surprised if he threw Adam away. If he did not let Adam come, I would have been like, "Who are you, Senlin?"
I mean, I would have too, really. But at the same time, as a human being with half a brain, it's like, dude, why?
I mean,
Sarah, but Senlin has one brain cell.
But he also needs people to crew the ship. I mean, if there's no Adam and there's no Valletta, we don't have enough people to run the ship.
I don't know how much good Adam is with one eye.
Skeleton crew as it is.
I feel like Adam's like the second most piratey of the crew behind Edith. Like, he's got an eye patch. That's like legally required for piracy.
At least one person on the crew has to have a missing limb and one has to have an eye patch. They don't even have to be separate people, but it does have to.
Nope. You need those pieces, though.
And speaking of missing limb, first of all, I find it weird that, obviously we know that not the nurses who are branding people in the parlor aren't trained for this. They aren't doctors, whatever. But it just seems like, why Edith of all people? Like this, it doesn't seem to be like Adam didn't have any problems. Like, it doesn't seem to be super common for someone to end up with gangrene from the brand.
But we don't actually know, do we?
We see
a lot of people with the brands, or we see Adam with the brand, and he's the only one that that Senlin has acknowledged and being like, oh, I recognize what the brand is because I saw that Adam had it. But with the exception of Adam and Edith, Senlin hasn't actually I don't think he's clocked anybody else actually with it. And everybody's so unfortunate.
Most people wouldn't, because they wouldn't come back, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
they're not allowed to. Yeah.
Right. They're not allowed to come back.
To lose an entire arm over.
Oh, it makes perfect sense, medically speaking. So I guess this is a good time to jump into the setting, because this is a Victorian steampunk setting, obviously. And in the Victorian ages, we had no fucking idea what we were doing. So infection, death, limb loss, all of that good old stuff is just very common. Anytime you do anything to the body, any sort of teensy cut, you can get infected and lose a limb, because we just have no idea. And we have no idea what germs even are and how to stop him.
And I get. I know that,
no evidence of this steampunk world being medically developed enough to get that, because all we've got so far is like weird quasi-medical torture devices, and that's the opposite of medicine.
I don't know, man. I'm just saying, like pre-Victorian era, people branded cattle and stuff all the time. I get that like cuts and everything can cause this, but it's got to be kind of rare for a cauterized wound to fester so bad that you lose the entire limb. It's just very weird to me. I believe that it happened to Edith, obviously, because that's what we're told, but like, and there's nothing else that we know of that's gone on with her arm. It just seems a little bit over the top.
I don't know. I think it's perfectly on track for Victorian medicine, especially because, like you said, the nurses have no idea what they're doing. So if they're doing shit wrong, they've got no idea. And, we don't ever see when somebody's branding, like, livestock, their first couple attempts, because I'm guessing those probably don't go as well.
I don't know. My sister and my brother-in-law have done it plenty without any problems.
I don't know. I'm not farm folk. But also, like, if farming people do that all the time, like, I would suspect that they have some sort of, education system in place of how to do it correctly and not fuck
called
up.
4-H.
Yeah. Well, regardless, Edith has lost her arm, but she has this like really cool like mechanical one. Arm. Yeah, I mean, true. Well, I mean, I guess is it bionic if it's
no, it's a steam
because it's like steam powered, right? So it's not really bionic; it's like steam powered. But I mean,
guys,
you can kind of call it bionic.
Aesthetic. It's all steam, all gears, all the time.
Put a gear on it.
And like this isn't a spoiler, obviously, but like the cover art for the second book is like a close up of Edith's arm, and it's freaking amazing. Like my friend Ian did the cover art for all these books, and the close up of her arm is it's really good. It's really cool.
This book really caused me a lot of like emotional distress, costuming wise, because I was like, if I had to cosplay from this, who would I cosplay? Would I cosplay Edith or would I cosplay Valletta? Because, like, they're both described as, like, brown-skinned women with dark hair. And they're both, like, different aesthetics of epic. And I'm like, I have choice.
Yeah, and then you have
choices.
And you have Scarecrow Senlin over here, just, like, bland as all get out. And I don't know if it's in this book or if it's in later books, but he does, like, describe himself sometimes, and like the way he describes himself is like, I'm whatever. I don't think he calls himself ugly, but he's just really like I'm not much to look at. It's very funny.
He spends the first couple parts basically describing himself as a skinny fish man. So like
I think of him as like a version of Ichabod Crane.
Yeah. I mean, gosh, honestly, he's from a seaside town. He never left it until now. He's a fish out of water, quote unquote. Is Senlin a secret mermaid?
My view of Ichabod Crane comes from growing up in Sleepy Hollow myself. So I think of a very long, storkish character. And I never thought of Senlin that way in my mind, but.
He describes himself as very like thin and lanky, doesn't he?
Yeah, when I hear lanky, I definitely think tall. Like not super tall necessarily, but certainly lanky to me is tall.
Yeah, and he describes himself. He says that people called him the sturgeon, which is a very skinny fish. And I was just like, "Ah, yes, skinny fish."
And a long one.
A long skinny fish man.
Sturgeon are very ugly too.
A long, skinny, ugly fish man.
Poor Senlin. He's still just trying his best, trying to teach Iron how to read. I also love how the chapters in part 3 start instead of with quotes from the Everyman's Guide. They start with quotes from like his own journal slash guide slash book, whatever. Like, is he trying to write his own book? You know, it's called Every Man's Tower, One Man's Travails by T. Senlin. It's just like, oh, beautiful. Senlin, you're so good and pathetic and
what a dramatic academic.
Travails. I mean, he really does have travails, though. Let's be real.
He does.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, though, I think the funniest thing about this part, not funny as like LOL funny, but funny as like, oh wow, everything sucks. All I can do is laugh. Funny is the fact that somehow Senlin, out of Senlin, Edith, Adam trio, managed to get through with the least permanent disfigurement.
Yeah,
and I'm just like. How? He has 0 brain. 0. 1 brain.
Well, he has a brain.
He has so much brain. It's
very
just all book
focused
smarts.
on academic stuff, yeah.
1 brain cell, and it's full of academia.
So gosh, I'm kind of all over the place with like my notes on this, just because like it has been almost a year since I reread this book. But the one thing that I almost spoiled for the last episode, or sort of half spoiled, was Ogier not really being Ogier. That the Ogier who gave Senlin the painting wasn't like he's a fraud. Someone else painted that over 100 years ago, and this guy took his name, tried to mimic his style. You know, he chose a studio over a perfume shop so that everything would smell like what the original Ogier painted. And I, you know, it's part of me is like, can we really trust what the commissioner is saying? But I think he's probably right about this. Like he seems pretty obsessed with this painting, so I feel like this is something he would know about. So I don't know, any thoughts on that painter, you know, not being the real Ogier? That's not even his painting. Why is he obsessed with it if it's not even his painting?
Well, it makes sense though, that it's not him, because Senlin specifically notes that the like forgery that the fake Ogier makes like sucks, obviously, by comparison.
Mm-hmm.
And so I remember like noticing that and being like, it's a bit odd that it's like actually bad, because he was like describing the proportions of the girl and like how it's like dwarvish and not like correct. And I remember just like noting that like as a side and being like, weird that he can't get proportions correct on like a human figure. Whatever, okay. So like,
well, and that he would have this like one masterpiece, and then all of his other things aren't even very good street art.
Exactly, that too. It's like it was just kind of the disconnect there was a bit. I was like, I get one person having a piece of amazing art and the rest just being okay, but like one person having a piece of amazing art and the rest being mockable shit street art, like that doesn't quite. Savvy.
Although the painting of Maria was good, though, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was supposed to be.
But he also spent like a week painting it, and usually he spends like, I don't know how long he's spending painting most of his things, but it is noted that like he usually doesn't have people sit for him for that long. And
well, that was the full body specifically. The torso portrait that Senlin has now was in one sitting, but it's also I don't know that we can really be objective with Senlin's description of a portrait of his wife, who he misses dearly. Because I feel like at this point, it's just like, Maria, my beautiful, I see her, I miss her, the painting is perfect. And it could have been a blob. A very vaguely Maria-shaped blob. I don't know if Senlin's like truly reliable there.
Who knows?
Who knows?
Yes, he does have a Maria obsession.
Slightly. But yeah, that whole thing was just like so weird, because like for all his desperation for the painting, he ends up giving it to Senlin, and then imposter Ogier dies, and then he gives Senlin a note that's also like, this is the key to a tower, and it's a picture of a girl, and I'm like, I've got no clue. Normally with stuff I can kind of hypothesize what it might be, but how this miscellaneous painting of a child is a key to the tower.
Well, maybe the value.
I don't know, man.
And that way because you have it, he can afford to go anywhere. I mean, I
don't know.
Not if the commissioner is constantly chasing him.
or more likely, it's important to someone on this journey he's going to meet, other than the commissioner, and will open up opportunities for him. That's my guess.
That's a good guess. My guess is just that giant floating question mark above my head. I got nothing. No,
I always figured it was something. There was something in the painting that's like a hint or a key. I really honestly don't know.
Maybe
that was always
it's the perfume smell.
Ooh, like a secret message in the painting.
The perfume smell. I don't know how that could possibly, unless it smells like a specific part of the tower. I think it just smells like that hideous perfume shop.
Maybe there's a part of the tower that can only be unlocked by that one perfume smell. I don't know.
Sorry, my cat has been just trying to climb all over my keyboard, so I'm like, I've lost my spot. Okay, so just the other thing that, and this kind of goes along with like somebody not being who you thought they were or whatever, Ogier being the person that we just talked about now. But, then there's also Finn, who pretended to be down on his luck in the basement. We find out he actually runs, his own port. And surprisingly has a wife and children and is like lovely with his wife and children in their little picturesque cottage that's like set aside, and it's a very weird.
I mean, did I read it right? Where this like picturesque cottage is surrounded by like an industrial area? Is that how?
Yep.
That's how I read it in my mind.
Yep, that's correct.
Yeah, it does have like some separation. Like he has like a little bit of extra plot of land,
and walls.
Yeah, but so I think when you're in there, you might not be able to see the city surrounding you, but it's very much like it's very much like he has created this little paradise for his wife and children. And of course, his goal in making this money is to get them out of the tower for good and everything.
No, it wasn't to get out. It was to get up.
Yep.
Was it? I thought it was that he was. Been a while again. I thought it was that he was trying to get out of the tower eventually.
No, he wanted to get out of the lower levels of the tower. He wanted to go up and live in like the good parts, but that requires more.
I feel like he doesn't know anything. Like I feel like if I was stuck in the tower, I would be like, look at all that land out there. I want to get the F out of here and go buy myself a little farm and never come back to this hellhole. But
Tara, you're logical. I think we've established that everybody in this tower is kind of batshit crazy.
Well, okay, so now I'm going to put you in a more real world perspective, which will insult people from certain areas. But if you had a successful business in a lousy city, do you rush out to go to another city where you won't have a successful business? Not really.
I mean, if you have enough money to set yourself up without needing to be running a successful business.
You run your business till you retire to Florida, which would not be my choice, but that's what people seem to do.
Well, retiring to Florida wouldn't be my choice either.
Well, you had that opportunity, right? You were in Florida for a while.
No, thank you. Never again.
Secret cottagecore Finn, though, like that wasn't what I expected. I wasn't expecting him to have his own like little cottagecore hideout with his adorable children and his adorable wife, and it was just so weird. I was just so thrown. I was, what is happening?
And I feel bad for him a little bit. Like he's not a great person, But, you know, at the end of this book, after they have the big, you know, fight on the dock or whatever, he's kind of lost a lot, I think, because don't they blow up the whole dock? After everybody gets high,
On crumb.
which is, yeah, it's basically opium, as far as I can tell. Like when they describe the drug den, that's, you know, it's similar enough to opium. And also, I think part of the...
I don't think it has the same sort of reaction, though, to opium. I mean,
Not exactly, I don't think. But
I don't know what drugs do, so
the
I've never done
addiction...
drugs.
Neither do I. I've never taken one either.
The addiction the way they're taking it in the drug den, and also the addiction aspect to it is what screams opium to me, even though the reaction to it might be like, I mean, I've never taken opium. I mean, honestly, let's be honest. How many people do you know these days who've actually taken actual just opium, straight opium? You know,
Is
what I
opium
mean? It's
even
not-
real anymore? Like,
Well, opium,
Like, yeah, but-
yes. It's heroin. It's
now,
heroin.
okay, I was gonna say it's not like it doesn't exist as opium currently. It's like more refined.
Well, it never did. I mean, opium dens were basically injecting heroin into people. We call it
Well,
heroin.
they smoked it more
And they
often.
smoked
I
it. Well, that
think.
was, yeah.
But yeah,
The more you know. Well, hey guys, I'm still doing better than my mother because for the longest time, my mother thought that weed and heroin were the same thing. So she was really alarmed by the casual usage of weed by teenagers for a very long time because she thought these teenagers were doing heroin, and I was like, mother, even I know that's not it.
Well, and that makes a lot more sense with the whole like craze around marijuana and why like it was demonized. If people thought that it was like heroin, sure,
yeah.
fine.
No, that's not what the people in charge thought. The people in charge were like, hey, let's arrest people of color for drugs. So that's
That's
a slightly
facts.
different issue.
That's facts, Nami.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's true with most drugs. I'm trying to, not being around when marijuana became popular in the 60s, I always thought that was more of a Caucasian drug to begin with.
I mean, it was
Marijuana?
Marijuana is only a Caucasian drug now because now that
But
we
it was in the
have
60s too, wasn't it? When all the hippies were doing
Yes,
it?
but white people weren't arrested for it.
right.
Yeah.
That's a significant difference. It's not
reason
that
it was-
one group was using it more than another group. It's that one group was prosecuted for it more than
Yeah,
another
well,
group.
that's
And the
fair.
reason it is classified as a level 1 or category 1 drug incorrectly, which I might add, because it is not that bad,
Mhm.
is because it made it easier to prosecute people of color
Mhm.
for its usage.
Yeah.
And thus, it is seen as a rich white person thing. Just as you think about it, like a crack house is basically just the POC version of like a fancy drug party in a giant cabana, except which one's stigmatized more. There's definitely an equivalent amount of heroin use and drug use in those fancy rich people parties, but they're not called crack houses because they're fancy rich white people. You know,
Also, crack is not a cheap drug. It's not really.
Well, compared to
but-
cocaine, it was.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Anyway, off
Wow.
topic.
I'm
These
sorry.
tangents,
I'm sorry. I'm having
No, it's
a
okay.
revelation here. It's okay, not the same thing.
Drugs are bad. Don't do drugs if you're listening.
Crack is okay, not the same thing. I thought they were the same thing.
I
What?
mean, I think that's something we can get into after this.
I don't need to know. I'm not going to touch this
Wait,
stuff.
what was the question now?
The question was, wait, are crack and cocaine actually the same thing?
Yes.
Yeah, it's different. Crack tends to be cut with different stuff and more dangerous because of that. It's also
and has been crystallized
Right.
so you can smoke it as opposed
Right.
to inhale it.
right. It's So
Okay, and then meth is something just completely different.
yes,
Okay.
yes. And I mean, actually, really, like,
oh, Nami, our sweet
now
summer child.
now I'm trying to think, like,
I did not pay attention to drug abuse education and alcohol abuse education in high school because I was like, I'm never touching this shit. And I got to college and I was like, what if I try one alcohol? And then I didn't know the difference between alcohol content in beer and wine and hard liquor. So I had a sip of rum, Kraken rum specifically, and I was like, wow, this is delicious. So I poured myself a beer glass of it and I downed it because I was like, oh, delicious. And then I woke up in the hospital. So,
oh, Nami.
So, you know, I lack drug education because I just never needed it. And I'm like, I know people are prosecuted for the drug, but that's all I got.
Yep.
Well, nobody's prosecuted for crumb, apparently, unless you get so addicted that you have no money and owe people money and then probably become a hod.
Yep.
Well,
but
no one was prosecuted for opium in the 1800s either.
Right. Well, crumb is kind of used like opium, I think,
right.
And it's to
and we come full circle.
Exactly. All right. Now that we've come full circle,
next topic.
The fact that crumb isn't actively in their medications means that they're actually doing better than the 1800s because we used to give people opium as medicine.
I mean, I guess we don't necessarily
we
know.
Still do, though.
As a point, it was effective. So,
oh my god! Actually, this reminds me. Right after my elbow surgery, I was given opiates, and I took it the first night, except I took it at like 3 a.m. because I woke up in pain and my mom was like, you should take it. So then I woke up the next morning and I was still high and it was really weird and I hated it and then I never took it again. That's my fun story.
Heroin and morphine are very similar chemically, so
yeah,
exactly. So that's why medically painkillers, it's such like a regulated opiates thingamajiggy. But unregulated.
We're going in a whole new territory.
In the 18th century, when we were just like, here you go, bottle of opium mixed with some whiskey, medicine.
Sounds delightful.
And Coca-Cola's original formula had cocaine in it, so
yes, yes, it did.
Well,
back in time.
Yeah, or to
those
not.
were the days.
Here's good.
So, so Senlin gets high off the crumb at the beginning of part 3, and then it comes full circle in the end when they have this giant, shipboard fight where the crate of crumb is broken open, and everyone is just like, "Woo, yeah! Like now we're gonna fight like this." The fact that they escape at all is like. Cool, good for them. How, like it just all seems like a mess, and like the commissioner's there, and how is this possibly going to work out for them? Rodian really kind of helps them more than anything because he storms onto the ship. I think I know he shoots the pirate captain, right,
yes,
Billy Lee, because. I can't remember exactly why, though. I think it's something to do with, like, maybe he thinks Billy Lee is stealing Volita, or maybe it's just, like, I don't even know. It's a lot of, like, what is this guy? This guy Rodian is just, he's a little off his rocker.
Well, the thing with Rodian, too, is that he actually was originally hurting the cause, because originally they were all just supposed to be calmly on the port with none of their luggage. But Rodian's just like, hey, let's go shoot people! So he started to fuck it up. But then other people came and fucked it up differently. And then ultimately, they tried to open the crate that was supposed to have the painting. But Senlin was like, what if I booby trap it? And I thought it was going to explode, but no. He booby traps it with drugs.
I'm not sure that was actually the greatest idea.
No, it was not. Because air, circulation...
Well, and I think though he expected that he would be able to have enough warning to like.
That he thought that the crate was going to be on the ground with the crew and all those people, and he was going to be on the boat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So he thought he was going to be nowhere near the crate. But the whole thing, the reason I'm hashing this out though, is because there's the part where the red hand gets like a face full of crumb, and he's like, tripping balls and he's acting like a child, and I just want to know what was up with that. But we're never going to find out what was up with that because he just got accidentally yeeted by Edith.
The Red Hand he is a weird, creepy character. Like the way he is described, I believe he's described in the baths, right? Because he's there for the execution. So we know like what he looks like and everything.
Also, like, extra creepy because there's a portion like when Senlin like shoots at him when he's first ambushed in his room, he like notes that the Red Hand smells like formaldehyde, and then like nothing really seems to kill him. So the whole time I'm thinking that he's already dead. Like I think he's somehow a reanimated corpse, and that's my hypothesis, and I stand by that. Listen, it could
work.
Punk, which could go in line with Victor Frankenstein-esque creations. So that's my plot, and I'm sticking to it. And we don't know what the red goop is. The glowy red goop, anything that glows, I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. He smells like formaldehyde. That's so fucking suspicious. I think he might have been like on like the brink of death and like, I don't know. So weird. I'm just gonna put this fry in my mouth.
Yeah, I mean he's one of those characters where it's like I'm glad he's gone, but also not, because I would have liked to have known, and I guess there's still a chance that we'll learn more about him from other characters, from I don't know if the commissioner comes back around, whatever, but
so I haven't touched book 2 yet, but here are my guesses, right? First off, it's got Edith's arm front and center. It's called Arm of the Sphinx. I don't know what's happening with the Sphinx, but it has something to do with Edith. I'm betting that's like her debt or something is tied to that. And like the weird way that like the Red Hand was calling her sister makes me think that she's indebted to the same person that he is, because they're using the same type of energy with those red capsules that he stabs himself with and that she puts in her arm. So I think there's a connection there. And I think, good riddance that the Red Hand is dead, because no, too creepy, but I think we're still going to get answers about him, because I think the next one is going to be Edith focused, and we're going to get some answers about her arm. Because why else would the arm be on the cover?
Do we actually know that the Red Hand is dead? Like, I know he gets thrown overboard, but we don't see him die.
No, he's dead.
He was yeeted.
We learned, if it didn't happen on screen, it might not be true.
Yeah, we've learned that a lot of times.
Even when it does happen on screen, it sometimes isn't true.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's also true. Sometimes even if it's on screen, it's not true.
Well, I mean, and at the very end too, when they escape, like, Iron is critically injured as well. But I don't, we don't know that she's dead. I guess, we don't for sure know that the Red Hand is dead, though I think his death is more likely than even Iron's, just because.
No, I think Iron is described as more alive.
It recovers, because in the epilogue it talks about her.
Oh, it does. Okay. I didn't want to spoil anything. It's like, I knew she's still alive, but I didn't want to spoil anything, and I couldn't remember at the very end.
No,
of the book.
He talks about her recovering in the epilogue.
Okay. Well, thank you for that, because I'm sitting over here like, I know she's alive, but I don't want to say anything and spoil something in case it's like, because
in case about it.
In case it comes back, in case like the her recovery was at the beginning of the second book,
But we do suspect, though, that the Red Hand and Edith got their powers from the same place.
Oh yeah.
I mean, yeah, I think that's like, just because that's like Nami was saying, they both use the same, thing.
They use the same power source, and he calls her sister. And the only we know that the only reason that we can say for sure that he was dropped is because her hand ran out of power. Because we don't actually know that she would have dropped him otherwise.
Yeah. And Senlin's like, oh, she totally would have dropped him, and we're all like, would she though?
I don't know. He's really creepy.
Oh yeah, 100%. But he was clearly making an argument to her that she was like hearing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, she was clearly thinking, like, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't be doing this.
Yeah, maybe I'll get in trouble.
He stopped
Oopsie.
negotiating. It was suspicious enough.
Okay, so gosh, there was like so many random things.
Valletta!
Yeah. Yeah, she's
Yes, I
she
can't
she's
wait
the
for
race.
more Valletta.
she doesn't have as much like, you know, she doesn't have as much page time as like Adam or Iron or even Edith, I think, because most of the time she's doing her acrobat thing in Rodian's brothel. But yeah, she's great. I think that Adam is like, I need to like save my sister. I need to save my sister. But really, I think like he's the problem. Like, she can kind of take care of herself. She's been doing it so far, you know. I for sure think that Rodian hasn't only held back from selling her off because of Adam, you know.
Oh, yeah, no, I am very much team, like, I hope we get Valletta's POV soon, because she's gonna be out there and she's gonna be like, yeah, I just let Adam think he was doing shit, but actually I had it all under control. Like,
I mean, you see that in their relationship from the beginning, like when Adam is telling the story of how they came to the tower, when he's like gonna go off and like go on his own, and Valeta's just like, yeah, no, I'm going with you.
No, you're not.
Yeah, like, sorry, not sorry.
Listen,
Yeah,
you dumb boy.
he's like, I got off the train and I became a man. And Valletta's like, and I got off the train and I adopted my twin brother because he's a fucking child.
Yep. I immediately had to start taking care of him.
I mean, honestly, if he had like, I don't know, asked her opinion or anything before signing that original contract, like maybe he wouldn't be this deep in this mess. Like, it seems like Adam doing things on his own without. He's not very good at it.
Men are dumb and I don't respect them.
Less smart than Senlin, even possibly.
Yeah, it's kind of great. They're like dumb in different ways, but still so dumb. Also, this brings me back to the setting as well, just because like I wanted to take a moment to touch on this, because like, you know, this is obviously like a very like Victorian steampunk story. Like it's steampunk. That's what the setting is. And whenever you get that setting, though, it's always European. It's always like typically English or like Parisian, and maybe the rare Spanish. If you're not even. They don't even go to Spain, and like so like having that, but having all like the biblical influence, which means that this is set in the Middle East, and like all of that, meaning that you actually get like main character, like almost every single person in like the main story is like not a white person, which is wild. And you have like so many like beautiful women characters who are described as having dark hair, and every single time a beautiful woman character comes up, I'm always like, and she's gonna be blonde. and then she was literally never blonde, and I was like, what?
I don't think there are
one,
any white characters, are there?
There is one blonde character in the story so far, and that's like the one woman.
The woman who ratted him out.
Yeah, who like tries to blackmail him.
Yeah.
Wasn't there a redhead also in this?
But Maria's a redhead.
Yeah.
So Maria's a redhead. So, like, but the thing is, though, that, like, you know from the story that, like, Senlin and Maria have traveled to come to the tower.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't actually know how far away they are. So, like, obviously the thing with the tower is that people do travel to go there. So there are presumably people from around the world there. And, you know, there's also, even though they haven't explicitly, like, you know, described characters as East Asian, but there have been descriptions of East Asian clothing and Asian clothing and different ethnic clothing in the story so far. But like the fact that the actual like center of the like story is set in the Middle East in a steampunk story is just so wild to me, and I'm just like, yes, here for the vibes.
Senlin and Maria, when they come by train, they're on the train for days, possibly a week. It might even be longer. But it's definitely days because he talks about it being like their honeymoon period.
Hey. Okay, yeah. A lot of sense. Because, like, it was so funny to me because, like, Maria's described as a redhead, and I'm like, all right, loads of white people, great. And then from that point on, literally no other character description read as white to me, which was wild.
I think Iron is the only one I'm not sure of, only because I know she has like gray or like silver hair. I don't know if it means silver blonde or like silver as in it's gray. I think she's older, so it's gray.
Yeah,
but
Iron was so busy describing her as big and buff.
Yeah,
that they didn't do any other description.
She's Louisa, but old. Louisa from Encanto.
Yes, I was just trying to look to see if there's like a wiki for the series.
Be really careful though, because like I googled the red hand a minute ago, and it like I opened up like a Reddit post, and it was spoilery if you have not gotten past the first book. So yeah, be really girl. There's very little about the series on the internet, which I love. For some reasons, but it means that what little there is, it's a lot easier to get spoiled because it's like front and center. Like, do not go to the Reddit. It looks like they're okay about spoiler warnings, probably, possibly, but there's a lot of posts about the most recent book in there, and it's like, I haven't read that one yet. I've been, waiting because I really want to experience it, for the first time for this webcast. And yeah, it's like, I don't want to be spoiled by this. Like, I would love to participate in the subreddit for this series and like, maybe plug this webcast there, but I don't want to be spoiled. So yeah, I mean, I know Nami last week was going off about there not being summaries. There are summaries if you look hard enough, but like if you really want to be spoiled, I guess spoil yourself. But
I have not looked hard enough.
Nami loves spoilers.
Yeah.
Although I did find this really, really cool art of this scene where Edith is dangling the red hand, and it is fire. It is so good. I found it by Googling Senlin Ascends Edith, and it was like in the images, but again, beware. Although
I saw that art too. I think Edith is like skinnier there than I would have expected. Like I expect her like.
Where are these?
Oh, that is awesome.
Right?
If you Google
Senlin Ascends Edith.
Yeah, or Red Hand even. I think it's probably going to come up.
Edith.
Okay.
I didn't
Google
Senlin
Ascends Edith, and it's like the first image.
Yeah, I can't promise that if you Google Red Hand that it'll be spoiler free.
True.
But I know the Edith Google is spoiler free. If you go directly to images, don't read.
Yeah, don't read anything.
There's also a illustration of her and Senlin in the cage.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I will say that depiction of Edith is skinnier than I expected, but also does make sense because she's kind of been living not great for a bit.
I mostly just picture her as like, hearty farm girl build. So like, even if she's lost weight, I still don't picture like a slim person. Like there's a difference between a person who's just skinny and a person who has like a hearty build and has lost too much weight.
Girl.
Yeah. All right. So I don't know that there were any other specific points that I wanted to bring up, but did you guys, have we missed anything that you wanted to talk about with part 3? Because this, even though a whole lot happens in this part, it's, and it is still like not quite half the length of the book. It's not like it's short or whatever, but
it was about like 45% of the book.
Yeah, but it mostly just seems like it's a lot of fast. It goes between pages describing Senlin and his bookkeeping, pages and pages and pages. I mean, not Temur or Travelogue bad, but
God, nowhere near.
I thought I didn't think it was anything like Temur.
No. That's what I'm saying. It's not like that, but it goes from
like action whiplash because so much stuff is happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The opposite of Temeraire, in which 70 pages of Australian outback adventures. But honestly, I'm good to end it here because this means that I can start reading book 2 because I didn't start it yet because I was like, you can't. You're just gonna start talking everywhere about it.
Yeah, I started book 2, but I mean only like I think I'm like 5 pages in, and of course I've read it before. But I mean it does, you know, it does jump right back into the story. So it's.
I will say I did open it and I did look at the map because I do like me a good map.
Yes, same. I like a good map that actually shows you like, I don't know, like detail. You know what I mean?
Oh,
not just a generic like here's a blob and like here's this place and this place. Like that was my biggest issue with the maps for the Grishaverse books, like the earlier ones mainly, is that it was basically like here's a blob with like 3 names on it and this is all you get. They got better, I think, as time went by, but in the beginning it was kind of vague.
I like all maps, detailed, non-detailed, as long as they're existent. I just think they're neat.
Yeah.
It puts an extra shine on like fantasy literature or sci-fi literature.
Even if your map is just an engraved stick, I still like it.
I mean, I think that's a cool ass like.
Map. I want it.
Could you imagine that as like a cosplay prop, like putting the amount of time into actually engraving some sort of like? How would you even do it? Would you make it? I can't even think about this. It's too much.
Actually, I already have a plan for how I would do that.
Of course you do.
So yeah, is there anything that we haven't touched on that you guys wanted to mention, or are we good to?
We're good to go.
Put a pin in it until 2 weeks from now. That's Wednesday, February 2nd, which is when we'll do parts 1 and 2 of Arm of the Sphinx. And the first 3 books, at least, and I'm assuming /opening book 4 is the same. It's, you know, parts 1 and 2 are about as long as part 3, you know, maybe a little bit longer, which is weird, but also makes it easy for us, I guess. So yeah, in 2 weeks from now, we'll be covering parts 1 and 2 of Arm of the Sphinx. And other than that, once again, I'm Tara, along with Nick, Jonathan, and Nami. Thank you for joining us for Sagas and Sass, and we will see you next time.
Goodbye.
Bye.